So, not beating around the bush on this question on the C Spire text line. So, is Art Briles coming to Mississippi State? Hey, Dad. That's from Cody in South Carolina.
Can
Cody
confirm.
Yes, Cody listening in South Carolina. Kendall Briles to State? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark?
Oh, did he say Kendall or did he say Art?
No, he said Kendall. Did I say Art?
Oh, you said Art. Oh, man.
You said Art. That would have made it a lot better. That would have made my response a lot better.
And here's that answer.
Kendall
No,
Briles.
Art will not be joining the staff at Mississippi State.
Art's not coming to
will
Mississippi
not.
State, nor any other staffs, for that matter.
Yes, Kendall Briles.
Kendall Briles. Maybe. A lot of smoke, to as Richard called it earlier today, to use some message board vernacular. There's a lot of smoke around Kendall Briles' name. I know there have been discussions between Arnett and Briles. I think that Arnett considers Briles one of the better offensive coordinators in the conference, guy that he himself had trouble game planning for. So that makes him interesting to him. I believe they've made a substantial offer to Kendall Briles, and now the ball's just in his court, and we'll find out in the next day or so if he wants to leave Arkansas and come to Starkville, or if he wants to stay put.
So you do believe it is that close? It is as simple as, is Kendall Briles going to say yes?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Ooh.
Brian Haydad reporting that Mississippi State has offered Kendall Briles the offensive coordinator job, and they are waiting on a response from him.
You know that nobody gets offered unless they take the job. That's how that works.
Yes, I am aware that is how it works.
Very interesting, though, right? Because it speaks to direction.
Very interesting.
Or desired direction, right? And it leads to a lot of questions. One, not related to Mississippi State. What the heck is happening in Arkansas? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that with recent records, what tells you that Arkansas is a better place to coach than Mississippi State? Because Mississippi State kind of beats up on Arkansas. But nobody would argue against them being on what you would consider an equal plane. Arkansas fans would say, oh, way better job. Not even close. Not anywhere close, even though, again, the recent records say otherwise. But aside from them, similar tier. Going from OC at one of those schools to the other, it's an interesting jump, right? It doesn't really add up unless you're getting away from something. So what the heck is happening at Arkansas that you want to get away from?
I don't entirely agree with what you're saying. I think there are lots of reasons that guys move, and sometimes it's just resume building, right? If you don't think you're going to jump to a head coaching job directly from the spot you're in, and you think you can go and prove yourself at another place, maybe it better prepares you to get a job offer to be a head coach.
Going from Arkansas to Mississippi State for the exact same position is going to make you more likely to be a head coach somewhere?
I will say that from another smoke standpoint, that it's being not reported, but it's being rumored that Arnett has offered Briles the same deal that Arnett had with Leach, in that I'm going to leave you alone. You'll be in control of the offense. I won't question any of your play calls. Put everything together, and it's all yours. And that maybe while he's in Arkansas working for a guy who's an offensive coach himself in Sam Pittman, he doesn't have that kind of freedom. And maybe he values that.
Well, that would be a mistake on Pittman's part.
And a raise, I mean, that's might be enough to get you out the door.
So that aside, for Mississippi State, it speaks to direction, doesn't it? Of what Zach Arnett wants his team to do. What Arkansas does, whether it's because of personnel or otherwise, but the way they've recruited the position tells you it's kind of what they want to do. They're more physical.
By the way, Kendall Briles in 2021 made $1.1 million at Arkansas. I'm sorry, I derailed your thought about direction.
It's quite all right, but that's part of the benefit for having a head coach with such a small salary. You don't feel like you're breaking the bank on an OC if you pay premium dollar for him, because you don't have 11 figures sunk into your football coach or your head coach. You can more comfortably pay for an OC higher than you usually would.
You could pay Briles $2 million a year, and you're paying your head coach and your OC what you were paying your head coach last season.
Yeah. So Arkansas was really physical, or have been for the last couple of years. What does that say about Will Rogers? What would his future be at Mississippi State? Does Kendall Briles look at him as a guy that he can win with? Or would the Mississippi native at Arkansas maybe transfer with him? I mean, there are so many questions that follow a hiring of Kendall Briles. Makes it fascinating if it materializes.
$1.2 million is what he was making last year. You don't have to. Do you have to pay him $2 million?
No, you don't have to. I'm just.
You have the ability to.
I was
do
doing
so
the
if you
math.
needed to.
I was just giving you the math there.
So Kendall Briles would bring an offense that is far more diverse than what Mike Leach was running, but very much has air raid principles, air raid concepts within it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he's running a version of what Baylor was running, which was air raid with a stout running game when they really had it rolling. I think there's another really significant question that you ask. KJ Jefferson?
Yeah, that's the next question people are going to ask.
Yeah, that was the Mississippi native I was referencing.
Yes, I don't mind calling him by name.
Does KJ come with, is it a package deal? I don't know the answer to that. You know, I mean, you're talking about two of the top quarterbacks returning in the SEC next year with Rodgers and Jefferson. How do you one of them? If I would tell you that if KJ was coming, that Will Rogers is probably leaving. Because I don't think you bring in KJ and tell him you're going to compete with Will Rogers. So I don't know. That's a good question that would be answered probably pretty quickly after a hire was made, I would imagine. I think Briles is the kind of guy, though, who can work his offense around what he has. So if he comes in and he wants to work with Will Rogers, he can make the offense work around Will Rogers.
Is this a hire that would excite Mississippi State fans?
I think so. I mean, you're plucking a big name guy from one of your conference rivals. You're going to pay him what appears to be a big salary. So you're showing a commitment to winning. I think so.
That was a very tepid response to that question.
Well, I mean, you just don't ever know.
Okay, so maybe the better question is, what would excite Mississippi State fans? Because Jeff in Grenada says, no, not excited about the idea of Kendall Briles.
Well, then I don't know. If you want to stay with the air raid family, would Garrett Riley excite you? But I don't see that happening. I don't see him leaving TCU.
Yeah, I saw State fans talking about Texas Tech's coordinator. Yeah, he's not leaving his alma mater.
He's leaving. Yeah, he would only leave to be a head coach, I think. So Seth Luttrell was a name that was exciting people a few weeks ago, but I don't think he's in the running anymore.
Sports. In terms of whether or not you would be for the idea of Kendall Briles, we get one message that says, "I'm for whatever kills the air raid." Period.
Oh, wow.
Hunter in Columbus says, I think it would be an awesome hire. I think Briles could absolutely put up yards with State's roster. Obviously, still add some playmakers and O-line depth through the portal if you can, but I think Briles would be a great fit. The defense will be so good that if the offense does get off to a slow start, I think that State could overcome it. Here's one. I would absolutely be excited about Briles.
If you're not excited about him, then your standards are so high that you can't be impressed.
They're too high.
Like Kate had said earlier, poaching the offensive coordinator from Arkansas would not excite you? Of all the things that have gone wrong at Arkansas, which, by the way, blind squirrel finding a nut every so often, I knew that after the first year, that people were overly praising Sam Pittman. It's not quite as good. Something's off Turns out almost 30 guys in the portal, losing both coordinators. Things are kind of at a crossroads in Fayetteville right now, to say the least.
Consecutive years where they've had a bunch of guys enter the portal.
Yeah. Lost some staff members last year as well under weird circumstances.
What about this note? Yes, would be excited about Kendall Briles. Also might add Chad Bumpus as a receivers coach. Seen that floating around there.
Mm-hmm.
You like that idea?
Oh, that's a great idea. We'll see if it happens.
Do you think there's an offer there as well?
Maybe.
As we're talking about this, there's another Arkansas player hitting the portal. Let's make that 29.
It's like the Junction Boys in Fayetteville right now. They're just getting on the bus and getting out of town.
Another response is, yes, Briles would definitely excite me. I'm sorry, we're going to have to go back to the previous, hey, Dad, if you're watching on SuperTalk TV, you saw his response. You kind of got big-eyed and got a sly grin on your face when Chad Bumpus's name was mentioned as a possible wide receivers coach at Mississippi State.
Me?
Yes,
I did?
You did.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what that's about.
How quickly do you think that happens?
Well, if they offered him the job, I think it would be pretty quick. I mean, he talk about a guy who would like to come home, like to get back in the SEC. You know, they reached out to him last year, but they offered him the running backs job, and he was not willing to take that job. He wanted to coach receivers. That's what he's been coaching his entire career. That's what he knows. My thoughts on this is he would be offered the receiver job, which I believe will just be, I mentioned this yesterday, there will be one receivers coach. There will not be inside and outside. Drew Hollingshead had already announced that he's out today, who was the inside receivers coach. I expect Spurrier to follow him pretty quickly and being out. And there'll just be one guy. So it'll be his room, whoever takes it over.
Chad Bumpus, 33 years old, Tupelo native, obviously a really good player at Mississippi State, and has done a good job at Utah working with their wide receivers and recruiting. If you look at Utah's roster, and frankly, if you look at their recruiting class, you're like, what's up with the Mississippi kids on the on the roster? And you're like, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense. It really makes a lot of sense. I mean, Chad Bumpus has come to his old stomping grounds, the state of Mississippi, and he has gotten guys and is continuing to recruit guys. I mean, Oxford High School quarterback, Mac Howard.
I'd say went into Oxford and got, and of course he was at Heritage before here in this area in the Golden Triangle, but yeah, top quarterback in the state last year, went in and got him.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.